Hello and welcome into the Friday live stream edition of the Sioux City Journal Playbook Pundits videocast. I'm sports editor Zach James, and alongside with me, as always, in his Seahawks fellow, it's assistant sports editor Shane Lantz. I don't have any Niners stuff on, but that's all right.
Womp womp.
Womp womp. What are you whomping for? Coming up in tonight's episode, we'll talk about some of the Metro games going on tonight, as well as some of the Siouxland football games going on. And let's jump right into it. Shane, it's
a new episode of P Cubed.
Yep, the new episode of P Cubed. Let's jump right into it here. The game you're covering tonight, our Metro football game of the week, is Sioux City East taking on Sergeant Bluff Luton in Sergeant Bluff tonight. This should be a really, really good game tonight, and I wish I was going to go see it. I'll talk about the game I'm covering tonight, but this is going to be a really good one tonight.
Yeah, a couple of dynamic quarterbacks going at it. I mean, we have to talk, as we do every podcast, Luke Longval going at it up against Tyler Smith, the SBL quarterback, and you got Jacob Imming in there that's just able to do pretty much everything, as we've written about, feels like hundreds of times before. But yeah, I'm very excited for that. It's two teams that I've already covered this season, going back for, I think, the second time in 4 weeks now out to SBL. So looking forward to that. It's a nice little drive down there, and nice little stadium. I'm looking forward to covering that one.
Now, in the last two meetings, they didn't meet last year because of the pandemic, and basically teams were just facing everyone else in their pods, but and plus SPL and East are in different classes as this year as they were in last year too. But SPL beat East 41-0 in 2019. Just an absolute. SPL beat East 41-0. I don't know if I said that right, but SPL just dominated East. Now, granted, they had Daniel Raddick, quarterback who used to be at Wisconsin. Now he's at Iowa Western playing baseball, but I think this game's going to be a heck of a lot closer than 41-0, and I hope it is, too.
Yeah, with the first couple of weeks that I've had of game coverage, I would like a non-blowout for this one.
Yes.
But yeah, I see big things, honestly. After mentioning that 41-0 blowout, I hesitate to make predictions, but I think East is going to come out with a win tonight.
I do, too, actually.
I feel it. I mean, like my second mention of Longval, when that happened a couple years ago, sophomore, young kid. I mean, now he's a senior. He's college bound. He knows what he is. I think he's prepared. I think he's going to come up big tonight.
I think the big key for East tonight is just containing everyone on the XPL. You're not going to limit them. You're not going to shut them down. With Smith, Imming, Schenkelberg, they aren't going to shut them completely down. But if they can keep the ball in front of them, which is a simple thing to say, but I think they can do that with East defensive line. I think they will apply pressure.
It's a hard phrase to say.
Yes, it is. And then with their linebacker core, if they can blitz a little bit and apply some of that pressure, I think East will have a pretty good night. And plus, I think it also comes down to who gets the ball last tonight. Because I think that's going to be a shootout. I think that's going to be a 55-49-ish type game. And I think whoever has the ball last, and obviously I'm going to guess East they're going to have the ball last. And usually that hasn't boded well for Sergeant Bluff in the last couple of years. So I think East gets a big road win tonight. And this is a huge stretch for both teams. East starts out on a 3-week big gauntlet. They start with SPL tonight. They have Ankeny Centennial come to Olson next week.
That's tough.
And then they have Waukee Northwest coming to town in a couple of weeks. Centennial is ranked 8th. It's a Jerry Pizzetti coach team, so you know they're going to come out well prepared. So I think East has a big, big schedule coming up. And so does Sergeant Bluff. They played number 1 Hoyland last week. They've got East tonight. And of course, Sioux Center comes to town next week too. And they've got a big game against Spencer coming up tonight as well. And we'll touch upon that for a couple of seconds. But both of these teams are now in their mid-season, hey, here we go type of deal.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's the tough part. You could call it, they've both been good, but you could kind of call this a must-win for both teams. I mean, just kicking off into that tough stretch. You don't want to start off, I mean, we had, obviously you mentioned SBL losing last week to number 1, Harlan, but yeah, after you want to follow that up with a big victory. You don't want to go 2 straight losses. So yeah, that's kind of the exciting part. Is both teams you can tell really want to win tonight. And for me, in the little inside baseball as a journalist, I feel like this is going to be the kind of game where I have to rewrite my lead at least 5 or 6 times. It's infuriating when it happens, but man, it means it's a good game. So yeah, that's my hope, is that I write out my story and I have to keep changing it because there's just too much scoring going
Now,
on.
SPL has done that to me. They did it, I think it was it might have been even last year. I don't remember which game it was. I think it was the Portland Hole game last year where I had to rewrite my name. And the Lumber Kings, when I was in Clinton, did that to me too on a walk-off homer with 2 outs. So I know the feeling, and I'm sure you'll adapt to that well, even if it does come down to that tonight.
That's the saying, is there's no cheering in the press box, but when you're covering a professional game, there's often cursing in the press box.
Yes.
So people do not like to rewrite their leads, but part of the gig, I guess.
It is. Oh, how can people follow you tonight if they want to keep along with the game
on
Twitter?
You can follow me physically. Just look for this shirt, and you can follow me that way. On the internet, you can follow me at Shane M. Lantz. That's M like macaw, like a bird. So that's how you can get to me. How can they follow you?
They can follow me on Twitter tonight at Zachary W. James. I don't know how much I'll be tweeting tonight because I don't know if I'll be up in the press box or on the sideline tonight after deadline, but I will be at Olsen Stadium covering Bishop Heelan taking on North. It's North's homecoming after shutting out Des Moines North 20-0 last week. Heelan last week had a tough loss against Spencer, and Heelan's 0-3. North has a couple wins in there. I think this is an absolute must-win for Heelan, just to keep their psyche up, just to keep their kids positive throughout the year, because I know it's really hard to stay positive after an 0-3 start, after an 0-4 start. Maybe the fingers start to point a little bit, but I know Coach Ted Mosman is trying to do the best he can to keep their kids' heads held high. But I think they have to play a pretty flawless game tonight to keep up with the Stars.
Yeah, as you mentioned in your story today, I mean, Coach Mosman, he's not given up on his team.
Right.
I mean, that's just something that what we know about him. He just doesn't give
No,
up.
he doesn't.
So yeah, I think that's kind of the key. I mean, if the coach can keep a good attitude and kind of teach the right lessons, I could see Heelan. I don't see them getting a win, but I see them hopefully putting up a good, solid performance, and at least, I mean, moral victories are overrated, but they can be important.
Yep.
So maybe hopefully a couple moral victories tonight, if not an actual victory.
The Stars, meanwhile, have a really good rushing attack. They had Dedrick Sullivan the first 2 weeks.
Player of the week in week 1.
Dayton Harrell had a good game last week, scoring all 3 touchdowns for the Stars last week, and that's how I expect North to win the game tonight. Just pound the ball through the Heelan defensive line and just rack up the yards that way. Other metro area games tonight that we didn't preview. West played last night. They lost to Council Bluffs Lincoln 55-33. Go and read my story on that at SiouxCityJournal.com. I'll have an updated version of that coming up online probably within the hour, so go ahead and check that out. But 2 other metro games in the area tonight. One at home, Sitson coming to North Sioux City to take on Dakota Valley. Dakota Valley, I think this might be a must-win for the Panthers too, with an 0-3 start.
Yeah, especially after last week, kind of getting blown out a little bit. But they did, like we mentioned, they did show some progress in that third quarter. So maybe they learned the lessons this week and can stretch that to the whole game.
Otherwise, in the Metro tonight, Omaha Bryan hosts South Sioux City over in Omaha. Both teams are 0-3. I believe South Sioux beat Omaha Bryan a couple years ago, if memory serves right. So this might be a chance for the Cardinals to get their first win of the year.
Yeah, I mean, that would be nice. I mean, like we've mentioned many times, I mean, there's several teams that have just started tough. I mean, Dakota Valley, you mentioned South Sioux and Heelan, all 3 teams. I mean, you know that they just want that first win. That's the most important.
The first one's
win.
hard to get.
It is. I mean, if you're not in playoff contention at the end of the year, these are the most important wins. It's just the first win. So I do think at least one of them comes out with a win tonight. I don't know who. If I was to guess, I would probably say Dakota Valley is the most likely.
Yep.
But yeah, let's see if maybe 1 or 2 can finally pull that out.
Yes. Now, I'm thinking, first up, I'm going to have some beef tonight. And the reason I'm saying that It's the Beef Bowl. It's tonight. Central Line, George Little
We've
Rock.
located the beef.
Yes.
You don't have to wonder where it is.
Beef, it's what's for dinner.
That's right.
Central Line, George Little Rock taking on What's the Lion in the Beef Bowl. That'll be in Inwood tonight. This rivalry is usually pretty big. They played twice last year. Central Line coming out on top in both victories, especially in the quarterfinals. So I think the Wildcats are going to have a chip on their shoulders tonight, and why not? This is hoping to be a really, really good game. And Central Line's still ranked at 1 and 2. They got a must-win last week, and maybe this is a must-win again for the Lions. But the Wildcats are going to have something to say about that.
Yeah, I mean, you can tell just by the fact that the game is named. It's the Beef Bowl. It means something to people. It
does.
This is a night that people plan their season around. If you can only be at one game, you go to the Beef Bowl. So,
and plus, it's sponsored by the Cattlemen's Association up in Lyon County. So
it means a lot.
I'm sure they're going to serve some good beef up there tonight,
I'm sure they will. There's going to be a lot of stuff that people are looking forward to. I mean, a lot of good beef, a lot of good football. So pigskin and beef just all over the place.
And I don't even know if the Lyon County Cattlemen's Association works in the beef quarters during the state fair. If you do, great. Thanks. If you don't, try it just one year. It's a good time at working at the beef quarters at the state fair. I've done that a few years, and it is a good time, and it's always good food.
Yeah, it should be a fantastic game tonight. I'm very much looking forward to seeing how that turns out.
Elsewhere Siouxland tonight, Barry Poe will be at this game, and you can read his game in Sunday's paper from this one. Algona taking on Borden Hole Rock Valley. It's a top 10 matchup. One of two top 10 matchups in the Siouxland tonight, actually. Mm-hmm. The other one is OABCIG traveling to Gowrie to face Southeast Valley. Mm-hmm. But this one is in Hole. Both teams find themselves with 3-0 records. The Bulldogs are ranked 9th in Class 3A, having a really good start to the year. They're led by Tyler Mansky, who's the quarterback, who can both throw the ball and run the ball. So I think that's going to be the Nighthawks' biggest key defensively, just to keep Mansky in the pocket and don't let him run off too far.
Yeah, I mean, that's as a defense, that's kind of your worst nightmare, is a guy that can run the ball and pass the ball. I mean, you see it a lot at the high school level, more so than you do in, say, the NFL. I mean, sometimes you see it in college too, but that's going to be tough for the Nighthawks. If you have a guy like Mansky, just do it with the arm or with the legs. You can't lean on just your defensive line or just on your safeties. You really have to have everything clicking. So, yeah, it's going to be tough, but I think they pull out a victory.
There's also a top 10 matchup on the Nebraska side tonight in 8-man football between Bloomfield and Pender. Both teams are ranked in the World Herald's rankings for the week. Pender is ranked 7th in the class, while Pender is ranked 8th. Pendragon senior Caleb Trimble, 254 rushing yards on 29 carries.
Ooh, impressive.
The Bees have had 3 straight 10-1 seasons, and they're aiming for another one. This should be a really fun game tonight in Pender.
Did you say there's a lot of buzz around this matchup?
Yeah, I see what you did there.
I'm just going to high-five myself for that one. But yeah, that's another great matchup, like you mentioned. The Omaha World Herald, they know what they're talking about football-wise. They're kind of the authority
Sister
down
newspaper
there.
of ours.
That's right, sister newspaper. You can also subscribe to them if you want to subscribe to both. Feel free. But yeah, that's another great matchup out there in Nebraska. So what did you mention? Who had the 200 and whatever yards it was?
Caleb Trimble for Pender.
Yeah,
for the Pendragons.
That's a very fantastic name. But yeah, that's a big performance. So see a repeat possible. If he can pull that off, he's probably going to be in the running for one of our athletes of the week pretty soon.
Yep, absolutely. And the last game we'll focus on here, and you can read these capsules here in Friday's paper of the Journal, so go pick one up. Elk Point Jefferson taking on Beersford. It's Beersford's homecoming tonight. Beersford, EPJ having to go up there. This should be a really good game as well. Beersford, the Watchdogs won the last game against Parker 42-9. The Huskies, led by Ben Swatek and Noah McDermott. This should be a really good one too.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's when you have two teams, or you have a team going up at a homecoming. I mean, that's just like we mentioned with the Beef Bowl. It's a game that you plan your year around. You want to be there at homecoming, so you can tell it's going to be a very important game for them. But yeah, another one that should be very exciting. Lots of explosive players on the field.
Absolutely. And in the college realm this week, too, a lot of home games this week. Morningside hosting Mount Marty.
For the first time ever.
Yeah, for the first time ever.
Yeah, this is like you will read, Mount Marty has not had a football program in 35 years. So they'll be making their very first trip to Sioux City.
Yes.
It should be very exciting.
Yes, it will be. And then Dort and Northwestern are also home, and USC is on the road at Cal Poly. Wayne State is at home against Minot State, and Buena Vista opens up American Rivers Conference play this weekend at Lourdes in the Rock Bowl. I expect the Beavers to come out victorious there in that historic stadium in Dubuque. Any final words?
Well, we mentioned Dort. I will be out at Dort tomorrow. And where will you be tomorrow?
Reminder. I will be covering the Mount Morningside Gaming. You can follow me again on Twitter at Zachary W. James.
And at Shane M. Lantz. Lantz, like taco and zebra.
All right. Very good. Very good. Make sure to check out SiouxCityJournal.com for some recaps tonight. And coaches and stat guys, if you see this, send us your stuff at scjsports at SiouxCityJournal.com so we can get those in later tonight and also in Sunday's edition of the Journal. For Assistant Sports Editor Shane Lantz, I'm Sports Editor Zach James. Thank you so much for watching. Have a good weekend.
Toodaloo.